My name is Esther Arbeid, and I am the Arts and Culture Director at the MNJCC. Welcome, Amanta.
Thank you very much.
The work that we're about to take a good look at is strongly tied thematically to archetypes in mythology. Because the show is called Eyeing Medusa, what is it about the story of Medusa that speaks to you? How is Eyeing Medusa your response to what you see in the world in regards to equity and misogyny and the Me Too movement? I mean, this is what we're going to see. But I want to start with the myth.
Medusa, most people think of as a horrifying woman with snakes for hair, and she's just an object of fear, and they think she's a monster. But if you dig into the myth, you learn that she was actually a priestess, and she has committed herself to a sacred life, a sacred pathway, following in the temple of Athena, where she was not going to take a husband, not going to have children. She was just going to focus herself on her spiritual path. And she was extremely beautiful, and there was some question whether Athena was jealous or not. Then Poseidon took a liking to her and decided he wanted her for his wife. So he rapes her. She doesn't get any consultation. She's not asked. She's just attacked and raped in the temple. Then Athena discovers this and is so infuriated that her temple has been violated that she blames Medusa. She doesn't blame Poseidon, she blames the victim, which is what happens in society. We're always blaming the woman. Well, what were you wearing? What were you doing? After being blamed, she is cursed, and Athena transforms her gorgeous long hair into writhing snakes. She is banished and sent to some remote island, whereupon Perseus, the local hero, is sent to kill her. And Athena gives him a shield, and they give him winged slippers, and they cloak him invisibility and all sorts of things. He's really got all the tools he needs to conquer her. And the key about Medusa is her face is so terrifying that if you look into her face directly,
you turn to stone.
But if you use a mirror, or in this case, Perseus, he uses Athena's shield as a mirror because it's polished so brightly. By looking into the mirror and reflecting on it, then you can kill her. And I look at that as the mirror is a symbol of self-reflection. So we have to look into ourselves and see how we are culpable, how we are responding to the problems in the world, and what we can do to make things better. Eyeing Medusa, we do have to look at her, we have to reflect. And Medusa relates to all the terrible treatment of women throughout history and the treatment of the environment and so on. We just barge in and help ourselves. My reason for painting close up is so that you look into the eyes without any distractions. You're not looking at her hair, you're not looking at her clothing, you're not looking at her body, you're not distracted by anything, you're just looking in. And I feel that in order to have a decent friendship with anyone, in order to have a relationship of whatever level, we must really look into ourselves. We need to look at each other and look in and see who is that person really, and then we can go forward. And the world did not do that with Aung San Suu Kyi, so that's why she's there, to say, you should have looked. Medusa's advocate is my impressions of Joênia Wapichana, who is the first indigenous Brazilian lawyer, and she has been fighting to protect the lands. And the Amazon is the lungs of the planet. The Brazilian government is allowing a lot of mining and going in systematically and killing the indigenous people. And so she has been arguing in the Supreme Court to protect the land. I feel a very strong link between the First Nation and the indigenous sacred path and the violation of that with the story of Medusa, because Medusa was on a spiritual path. And I feel from my experience with indigenous people, they have a lot of very strong spiritual beliefs that have just been, as John A. Macdonald launched in with his Indian Act and carried on from there. And I think it's completely understandable why Medusa would be so angry. Medusa has become known sort of as a symbol of feminist rage. And then we get Freud going, well, what do women want? Well, we want to be treated equitably. And it's amazing that people don't understand that.
How did you come to connect all of these women to mythology? Did you choose the women first or the myths first? I want to talk a little bit about that process.
I grew up on mythology. I love it. And in fact, if you look at all my other works, they're all related to mythology. So that's sort of my angle. And I'm looking at women from all cultures, imposing my perspective, because all I have is my own perspective. So I think of the goddess Athena, I look at Rembrandt's painting, and I think Angela Merkel, right? Or I look at Unity Dow, who is this amazing woman in South Africa. And she has done so much work for women and LGBTQ people and women's rights. So, of course, I connected with Artemis. So I was thinking about Persephone originally. Then I learned about Renelle Harper, a young Indigenous woman who, at the age of 16, was assaulted and left for dead on the banks of the Assiniboine River. And when she was pulled out, she said, "I don't think of myself as a victim. I think of myself as a voice for change." And then she went on to assist with the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. She also said, and I'm going to paraphrase because I can't remember exactly, we have to think about the ramifications of our words and actions. And that really was a huge trigger for me. And because she didn't see herself as a victim, I thought, yes, absolutely. And also as a survivor of rape and assault. I mean, the first time I got assaulted, I was 5, I think, walking across a bridge. And I don't think of myself as a victim, and I never did. And when I finally put my hand up and said, yes, me too, that just shook me to the ground because I wasn't prepared to think of myself as a victim, and I still don't. I'm a survivor, and so is she. Now, the story of Persephone is she's a beautiful maiden, and she's abducted by Hades, who wants to take her as his wife, and she gets taken down into the underworld, and the world falls into a famine. And everybody finally appeals to Zeus and goes, "Come on, do something!" And so Zeus, who's actually gave permission to Hades to rape Persephone and take her away, Zeus comes back and negotiates with Hades and said, "Look, you got to let her go back. This is not going to fly." So she gets to go and visit her mother for half of the year because Hades has tricked her into eating a pomegranate seed, which is obviously symbolic of tasting a seed. She then is forced to return and be his wife for half the year. However, that is not where the story ends. Persephone, while she's down being the wife of Hades, she becomes very wise, and she becomes Hecate and the guide to the underworld. So all of our experiences in life make us stronger. They don't kill us, they make us stronger. So that's really what I took out of that myth.
This one is just extraordinary. And you've just totally captured her, and to link her with Cassandra. Whenever I hear the name Cassandra, I think of the myth. For me, it's about a woman who speaks the truth. Nobody understands her and nobody will listen to her. But I also find the way that she's looking and where she's looking into the future.
That's exactly it. That's how I feel it, yeah.
Athena, who is my favorite goddess. Look at the colors under her eyes. I like this one very, very much. She is a symbol of how powerful we can be. That this is one of my very favorite ones. Another very favorite one of mine is the portrait of Demeter's Ice, Impressions of Greta Thunberg.
I love Greta. I was thinking about the paleness of her face and the deepness of her sorrow. I don't know if many people know the story of Greta Thunberg, but she has a selective mutism. And I think at the age of 8, she was learning about the environment and how little was being done about the environment. And she went into a very, very deep depression. And I think at age 11, she stopped eating and she stopped talking. And her dad at that point was desperate and said to her, "Look, you have to do something. You have to get out of this." And then she started the school strike for climate change. And to me, that just spoke so completely of the goddess Demeter, the mother of Persephone. So Demeter, when her daughter is abducted by Hades, goes into deep despair and refuses any help. She's the goddess of the grain, the goddess of agriculture. So the world stops growing and the world falls into a famine. So that total, profound despair that Demeter had, I saw in Greta. And I didn't want to paint her. I mean, I was fascinated by her white face and the youth of her, but I didn't see her that way. And so that's why I've given her this very dark face.
Look at how friendly, look at how open and loving this face is. I love this.
She always told me, to have a friend, you have to be a friend. And that really informs this whole project, because I feel I want to make the change in the world, albeit I feel like I want to be friends with all of these people that I have painted and all the cultures that I encounter in Toronto and around the world. And this is my way of being a friend. Big thanks to the Ontario Arts Council.